Welcome to Success at Scale with Triple G Ventures. I'm here today with my really good friend, Sarah Yule. Sometimes goes by the name Sound Lady, I think, Sound Lady Sarah. But she has an amazing career in the music business, music products business, music technology. She knows all sorts of stuff, and she has scaled so many companies. I got to tell you, I just am so honored that she's taken the time, late at night, by the way, to join me today to talk to you about all the great things going on in her world. So Sarah, tell us about you.
Triple G, it's
What's
so
up?
good to be here. Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you for inviting me. I feel honored to be here and to be part of this. So a few words about myself. Well, I started off as a sound engineer, believe it or not. Had my head more towards the books and the maths, but fell for the art and then fell for the business. So I've been working in the business side for probably about 15 years now in music, audio, consumer electronics, big companies, small companies, new companies. I love this business. It feels like an extended part of my family, and it's awesome that I've got to work with you along that journey as well.
Well, likewise, I got to tell you, working with you is probably one of the biggest highlights in my career personally. I've enjoyed it. That's why I'm so excited you're here today. But let's talk about this. You know, you got started in this music journey. Why music? How'd you get started in all this?
Do you know what? I always loved music growing up. Like, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I wanted to be able to sing and dance and make music. But I was also, believe it or not, like, you're never going to believe this, but I was really shy when I was a kid. Like,
I don't
I
believe it.
didn't.
I don't believe it. She's
I
one of the most outgoing people I've ever met.
I was really shy, and the thought of being on stage and performing in front of people just terrified me. So it was something I never really did. I think I did county orchestra playing flute for a couple of years, and I was in the choir, but kind of like hidden towards the back and trying to make sure no one noticed me. But I still really loved music, and I think I was about 15 years old. And I found out about this job called a sound engineer, where you get to hang out in music studios and record bands, but you don't have to perform anything. And it was quite geeky, it was quite mathsy and sciencey, and I was like, that is what I want to do. So that's what I ended up studying. But I kind of fell into the business side of it because I mistakenly thought that the hours would be better. I've learned the hard way over the years, but you know what? I love it. And I've realized that the business side of things is something that I've always been into. You know, I was the kid that my first job was working in a bakery when I was like 15. It was £2 an hour, cash in hand. But what I used to do at the end of the day, they used to throw all the donuts and the bread away. And I used to collect it all and then resell it to my friends like half the price. So I take like bags of donuts round and like loaves of bread for their mums. And so I kind of like doubled my wages each week by selling off this like bread and cakes at the end of the day. So it's like, you know, there was that, you know, I started a club night when I was studying as well. It ended up being one of the biggest club nights in Liverpool. So I've always kind of liked that business side of things, but I didn't realize it until it kind of accidentally landed on me. And then, yeah, here I am.
Amazing. Here you are. And today you're at this incredible company, Audio-Technica, right?
Yeah, I'm at Audio-Technica now. So believe it or not, I was just talking about this today. It's nearly 2 years that I've been there, which has just gone so fast. But you know, time doesn't mean anything anymore, does it? Because this year has like taken time as a concept, crumpled it up and thrown it out of the window because like everyone's lost sense of time. It's like, what day is it? What week is it? What month is it? It's just gone so fast, and yet we seem to have been in this situation for ages. So yeah, it's been 2 years at Audio-Technica, and awesome company, fascinating company as well. So diverse in terms of the channels that they operate in and the makeup of their business. But yeah, great experience.
So, like, you started in your career,
Mm,
kind of with this dream, right? Now,
mm.
fast forward all this way, you've done all these great things. Now, rewind. Uh, what advice would you give to someone coming into this industry and getting into this business? What would you do differently, and or what could you tell them?
Do you know what? Make sure that you're really super passionate about what you do. You have to be. You have to love what you do you have to be passionate about the products that you're selling or the company that you're representing, what you're doing, because that passion is what's going to get you through those harder times. And you need to be resilient. It's not easy out there. It's tough. You're going to have a million people tell you you're wrong and tell you no, and so many obstacles to overcome. So if you've not got that passion about what you're doing in the first place, it's going to make it all so much harder. So advice I'd give to other people, if you want to do this, is make sure you're passionate about it and then go for it.
All right. Well, let's now contrast that against sales, because you
Mm.
happen to be one of the most talented sales, marketing professionals, commercial people I know. Like, so how does this compare to sales and marketing and business when you started all the way in music? How does it correlate?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think for me, the concept of music, and because I wasn't a musician, I was a sound engineer, and did sound engineering and production. But when you're doing sound engineering, like the preparation, the preparation, the planning, the presentation, selling the concept to the artist almost of what you want to do. And I think that type of training is really lent into the style of salesperson that I am. I wouldn't say that I'm a wham bam get it sold type of person. I'm kind of thinking about kind of what the mood, or kind of the vision. I'm thinking about the different parts in terms of the different strategic elements and the different channels. I'm thinking about the process, how we're going to get it done. I'm selling that vision almost of that whole thing as if I'm talking to an artist or a producer in terms of that sound and how to do it. And then obviously trying to get to a point where I'm really enjoying what the end is. But I think the concept in sales is very similar to the concept in audio recording. There's a famous saying where it's, poop in, poop out, if I try and use a more polite phrase. And I think it's the same in sales. If you've got a poop product or a poop strategy, then the result at the end is not going to be what you want. So all of those elements I think are really important. And I think that's the kind of crossover that you can make between those two.
It's so flipped out, though. I mean, sales
Mm.
Is so much about being a consultant, about being a partner, about building a relationship. These are all things you and I together, working together at inMusic or ROLI or wherever we've been together for a long time. Sales is about, being a consultant, being a partner, being, having a relationship.
Mm.
Tell me about how you think about relationships and you think about the world of selling.
Mm. I mean, I agree with you first and foremost. I think relationships are so important. And I think it's that thing, isn't it? I mean, you're one of the best networkers I know in terms of being able to go into a room, light it up and get everyone communicating and talking, kind of break the ice. And I think that is so important sometimes. I think one of the biggest problems a lot of people have in sales or trying to get stuff done is not being able to relate to the person that they're communicating with, or just not being able to communicate effectively. Like I've walked into meetings or been present in meetings where it's so awkward. It's like it shouldn't be that damn awkward, but it's just that kind of lack of sort of social awareness in terms of just connecting with people and finding common ground, finding a common goal. And the way we talk about it makes it sound like you're kind of acting or being fake, but it's not. It's a genuine interest in people and getting to know people and understanding what's important to them and how to kind of connect all the pieces together. And I think that skill of being able to connect people and put things together could probably also be related back to music and audio and engineering as well, because it's the same, I guess, when you're songwriting or you're putting a band together or you're playing along with other musicians, like understanding how your part fits into that, how to communicate with other people. You're a drummer, so you keep the time, right? Which I think is significant as well when you talk about this, because you're trying to keep everyone on the beat of that communication. So yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels to make, but when it comes to relationships, I think they really are everything. Sales is not something that just happens, although a lot of companies think so, but it does take a lot. And I think relationships and that consultative approach is essential.
It's crazy during this time, this COVID time that we're living in, right? It is so easy to allow relationships to go away. I just had a call with somebody who reached out to me this morning. I didn't have time to talk, but I took the call anyway. I made time to talk to him. And when I talked to him, it was just so interesting to talk real and connect with him and talk about, the world and how we're feeling and what's going on. And I don't think he would have called if we didn't have that relationship and that connection. To me, I don't do anything, I look at it like this. I always say the same thing. At Berkeley, they talked about to be rather than to seem. And it's like, it needs to be authentic. Otherwise, don't do it. Right. And, it doesn't always work.
No.
But it's the right kind of approach. That I think that's why you and I have transcended work and become friends, all these years later, because it was real,
Exactly. You kind of get it and you move in that way. But I absolutely agree. And I think, as you say, this year has been difficult to stay in touch with people. And I think it is nice to be able to just check in with people and be like, how are you? And, it's great to hear from you. Like, I'm glad you're well. Like, I'm genuinely glad that you're doing okay. But at the same time, I think we've all been doing all of these video meetings all year, and, it does get tedious and it does get tiring after a while. But at the same time, when you're speaking to some people that you'd normally only ever meet in an office wearing a suit, and they're in their house and their cat's jumped on their lap during the call, or their dog starts barking, or the kid runs in, or the husband brings a cup of coffee in or something, and you kind of see that other human side of people. And I think that's been a really good reminder this year that there's a human side to everyone. It's not just business. And I think it's actually been a nice thing that I think other people are now realizing that importance of connections, realizing that importance of seeing the people side of business as well. And I think that's a great lesson for everyone to learn.
So this is called success at scale, and success wouldn't be possible without failure. So let's talk about a time when maybe things didn't go your way and, you had to face failure or a tough situation. And what did you do and how did you learn from it?
I think I don't really obsess about individual failures, because I think failures happen all the time. Failures are like a series of failures at the same time as you have a series of successes. It's the inevitable balance of life. But I think it's like each one of these failures, it's trying to understand, what can you learn from that? Is there anything to learn from that? Sometimes it's just frustrating, but if there's a common theme, I think for me, of failures which are frustrating, it's when things just aren't the right time. So it's like you've tried to do something and you've tried so hard and it hasn't worked, but it's just been the wrong time. It hasn't been the right time. You've been too early, you've been too late. It's kind of, things just haven't kind of matched together. And I was thinking about this the other day, actually, in terms of like time and, things that I've not done well because of timing wasn't right. And it really made me think this year has taught me something so big about something I think I failed at personally before, which is time for myself and time for my family. I think has been a bit of a failure for my career, because there's been years where I've probably been away from home far more than I've been at home, because I've been flying around the world getting stuff done, and I give 100% of my time when I'm home to my family and try and do stuff for myself. But I think this year really made you realize the importance of having that balance, and that you can kind of give it all, but you can kind of have more time. So I'd say my biggest failure has just been realizing that it's okay to have a bit more time for yourself and for your family. That's a luxury that neither of us really knew before, because we were both on a plane every 2 minutes, right? And that just becomes the norm. You don't know any different. That's what's expected.
you're talking to someone right now or listening to someone right now who traveled a tremendous amount of time all over the world, no questions asked. I mean, I've heard all sorts of stories with you, Sarah, where you go somewhere and you even have a medical issue or something and you're like, I'm still doing it, I'm still going. Like there's no stopping you, which is admirable. But I also remember so many times giving you the advice that I needed too, the same advice. So I'm a hypocrite, I guess. But I remember telling you, like, just slow down and try and find a balance. Sometimes what I've learned too is you got to slow down to speed up. You know what I mean? Like all of this boils down to one thing or a few things, but a journey. We're all on this journey, and it depends on how you look at things, right? Like, those failures ultimately fuel your success. So people who are afraid to fail, they don't reap the benefit of the success. And I think this is coming back to sales too, by the way, because so many people want the output of sales, but they don't want to forget strategy. Forget this, forget that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you find this too? Have you seen this before, what I'm describing to you?
I have seen it before. I mean, thankfully not everywhere, but I think even you and I have joked about this, maybe sitting at the bar somewhere. But unfortunately, I have met people where to them sales is like a bodily function. It's like if I eat food, I'm gonna go to the toilet afterwards, right? And that's like, if I make a product, then it's just gonna sell, right? It can't be hard, just make the product and it will sell. And as much as it would be great if that was the case, it's very often not. It takes a lot to get to that point. And as you said, I think sales gets a bad reputation because it's kind of seen as this kind of old school, like, guy with a file of facts and a brown suit, shouting numbers and like being aggressive or trying to sell you a car or something. And like, it's not the reality, as you said. It's it's everything else that it is. And yeah, the input to output, like we were saying with the recording analogy, it is that. It definitely is that.
All right, that's old school. Let's talk new school. Then there's this technology piece that's now in the world of selling and marketing and business. What kind of role does technology play in your current day-to-day at Audio-Technica?
I mean, technology, I mean, especially this year is just everything, isn't it? I mean, it's day to day in terms of communications, in terms of project management. I mean, Audio-Technica was already kind of remote because it's such a dispersed matrixed organization around the world that everything was already on Teams. So we were kind of one step ahead there. But everything's online, shared documents, cloud interface, it's all of these different apps. It's trying to manage your digital shelf when you've got all of these different apps looking at different analytics and metrics and measuring. And, everything is kind of, if I didn't have my computer or my phone, it's like, what am I going to do, basically? Because everything is in there.
Our internet at our house here, with homeschooling going on upstairs and me downstairs, the internet was cut. And we had to tether the phone, so we didn't have the internet, we didn't have the phone. It was a nightmare. I mean, you can't do anything in this world, right? There's nobody to talk to.
It's so hard. It's so hard. I've actually, I do keep, if I'm working on a file or something, I always keep a local version as well, just in case, because it's like I don't want to be left with nothing. But yeah, I mean, in day-to-day business, it's there, but it's also in products. I mean, even for like the company I'm at now, Audio-Technica is a 60-year-old company pretty much. But I sit in the product meetings or look at the strategy meetings, and technology features heavily, if not in the products which are coming out now, but also in the roadmap. And every company now has to be really considering how technology plays a part in what they do, whether it's consumer electronics, whether it's music and audio, whether it's professional audio installation. People want technology solutions now which fit together seamlessly, which integrate, which are smart, which have additional features. And you've got to look out there right now that some of the biggest companies in the business are not music and audio companies, they're tech companies. So like, to say that tech is not important in sales or in the market or in what you do is it's just not the reality. Tech is is super important. And I think every salesperson now needs to be really well versed in also digital marketing and, you know, the latest softwares and tools that are available to help drive a sales team and to give better visibility, to understand sales operations, to kind of have all of those pieces that fit together. Because when you're doing sales, you're not just driving a channel anymore or speaking to a customer, you're really looking at that omni-channel network of all of them working together, and every little piece, you know, has a knock-on effect. It's all like little cogs. So you have to have much more of a holistic view. We're making this sound hard, aren't we? Because you have to have this holistic view. You have to be a bloody consultant, a counselor, resilient, passionate.
All right. So then what are the top things that when you get out of bed in the morning and you plan your day, like what are you thinking about in order to prioritize and work through all those priorities? You got family over here, balance over there. You got all these different moving parts. How do you keep it together?
Schedule. I have to, everything is in my diary. Like my diary is insane, but everything is scheduled. I try and block time for different things. I try to be quite good with you know, sticking to the time on things. You know, I schedule in breaks now as well, because I used to be one of those people that sits at their desk all day, and you know, it gets to like the end of the day where other people are leaving, and I realize I've not even been to the bathroom since the morning, never mind eaten anything or drunk anything.
Been there.
So, yeah, so it's like now I'm trying to like take some breaks, you know, go for a walk outside, get some fresh air, albeit it's kind of cold now, so that's not as attractive, but at least kind of move, you know, at least kind of have some movement. But yeah, schedule is essential. And you know, I think when I get up in the morning, I'm probably as guilty as everyone. It's like, you know, I probably do check emails, check schedule, have a coffee, then get in the shower. It's kind of like I can't not look at what I've got to do in the day, because then when I'm in the shower and I'm getting ready, I'm thinking about things already and starting to plan out what I'm going to do in my day. So yeah, it's
for anyone watching, don't bring your phone in the shower. Not a good idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Despite what, you know, I know some of these companies say that their product's waterproof, but you know, there's no point to test it.
Don't try that.
No.
Anyways, so back to you. Who are the people who have influenced you the most?
It's an interesting question, that, because, you know, I don't want to get too deep, but
time. You can pause for pausing.
No, it's cool. I mean, to be honest, I think one of my biggest inspirations has to be my mum. Like my mum is a force of nature. Anyone who's ever met her will never forget my mum. She's completely unique, and you know, she is so not afraid to be herself 100% of the time and do what she thinks is right. And you know, this is the woman. She was born in like 1949. She's the, you know, mother of three. She's seen it all. She's been there, she's done it. She's literally bought the t-shirt. But she brought me up to have such an eclectic upbringing and to be so open-minded to different types of people from all walks of life. You know, yeah, probably a little bit more on the left side of politics for obvious reasons, but you know, very kind of open to learn and to understand people. And I think it comes back to that skill we were talking about of being able to relate to people. I definitely learned that from my mum, of her just taking me to, you know, it was just me and her growing up, and she used to take me to a lot of adult events and parties and friends' houses. And so I just got used to talking to adults and kind of hanging out with adults and talking about different things. But you know, these would be everyone from, you know, hippies to, you know, rock stars to bankers to, you know, just eclectic mix of friends. You know, we were living in London, in North London, so she had a pretty diverse set of friends. And she's just an awesome lady. You know, she moved out to Wales and went to live in the middle of the countryside. She doesn't have a TV because she thinks it's a load of rubbish. She just reads books and she studies stuff online. You know, she's just a pretty awesome person. And I think if I could be an ounce as strong as she is, then I would be doing good. So I think she has to become number one.
Well, that's just amazing. I got to tell you, you're way stronger than you think you are, and she sounds just awesome, and someone who I'd love to meet one day. I'll tell you something. Everything you described and your story and your upbringing and how you got here and your career, it sounds like it ties back to your mom too. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I do have brothers and sisters, but I didn't grow up with them. So she was the biggest influence in my life. So I think so much of what I think about or what I reference, she's my main kind of reference point to everything. And that's nice. And I mean, at the same time, she keeps me completely grounded. She still sort of wonders when I'm going to get a proper job, that's maybe doing something that's, be a teacher, or maybe do something else. The sales stuff, what's all that about? But she's really sweet, and she's definitely a big inspiration. I think outside of my mum, this will sound probably a little bit cheesy, but I think Michael Jackson was as well, because that was definitely like, I remember watching him do the moonwalk for the first time, in that video, and I was just like, wow, that is so cool. Like the number of times that I fell over and smashed my head as a kid trying to do the lean from the from that video.
I think you and a lot of other people.
Oh my God. Yeah. So like, I mean, I just loved it. I that's what made me fall in love with music, was watching amazing performers like that. And, still now, when I watch any amazing musician, that feeling of joy that I get is just unreal. And so I think Michael Jackson was the person that really set that spark off in me, which then I think has led to so much more in my life and my career. And then if I think I was to say a third person, I think I have to kind of mention someone in my career. And there's been a few influential people in my career, but I think if I talk about the first one, it's got to be a gentleman called Tony Larkin, from TL Audio. And Tony Larkin was the guy that hired me age 23 to work at his company. I'd been working at a retailer before, and we'd become the #1 retailer in the UK for his products. And he happened to be based in like my hometown. And so I just said I'd pop in for a cup of tea while I was passing, because, it was just down the road. And I went in and I met him and his brother and the girls in the office, and I ended up being there all day. And by the time I left there, we felt like family already. He went on to like be my surrogate uncle Tony, and we're still friends now. Like, he was at my wedding, but he put so much trust and so much faith in me when I was young, and I think gave me so much confidence that it would, I could do this and it would be all right. And especially because I was so young, a lot of people say to me, was it difficult getting started out because you were young, because you're a woman, because you're a woman of color? And it's like, Tony didn't make me think of any of those things. He didn't make it obvious to me that any of that was a problem. Like, if I encountered it, he would always defend me and just be like, just remember your skills. Like, you're probably smarter than a lot of those people that are saying anything. Like, you've got a good training, you're good at what you do. And just like really helped me out and gave me a lot of support. And I think if it, he was kind of a key person in just getting everything kicked off. So I have to give props to Tony.
Tony, that's awesome. I haven't met Tony, but he sounds amazing too. Let's talk about one, common myth that you've encountered, whether it's in business or it's in sales and music. What's a common myth that you want to debunk right now, right here? Let's get it done.
Do you know what? There's two that spring to mind. One of them, I guess, isn't so relevant in like post-COVID world, but that is the myth that this life is glamorous, because people see that you're getting on a plane and you're going out for dinners and, you're traveling around, and they're like, oh, wow, it must be so glamorous. And you're like, you could see the other side, the like fact I've had 3 hours sleep in the last 72 hours because I've been flying around and I don't even know which hotel I'm at. The number of times that you try and put your key card in the wrong door because you've forgotten which hotel you're staying at. And so, I mean, that would be one, but it feels kind of alien now because none of us have been on a plane since, the start of the year. So I would say the other one is like, reinforcing a point that you already made today, and that is that it doesn't just happen. I think that's probably the biggest myth. I think especially for people that sit outside of the, the commercial side of the business, outside of sales and marketing, they kind of look at it, they look at the numbers, and they'd be like, wow, it's great, it just kind of happens. And I think that's the biggest myth, because there's so much that goes on behind it. And I've heard several companies this year, I've heard people say, well, we had people furloughed, but we still hit all of the sales goals. Or we unfortunately had to let people go, but the sales didn't go down. And I kind of took a bit of offense to that, because I said, don't think it's because you don't need salespeople, or you don't need people, or those people weren't valid. Like, one, this year you can't really take as a case study for exact correlation in performance, because everything's just been upside down this year. But also it's understanding kind of the impact and the time and the significance. It's like everyone within a business isn't that important. Any one person isn't that important. That's unfortunately the reality. But every single person in a business is significant. Every single person is. And so if you've got a load of significant people, that's how you get that input in order to get the output. If you take away some of those people, you're going to have gaps, and that output isn't going to be right. So yes, there might not be one single person that's that important overall in the grand scheme of things, but they're damn well significant, and don't ever think that they're not. And if you want to get the output, you have to get the input. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
So well said. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'd love to survey those companies that said, yeah, we fired a bunch of people, but, our sales are still good. I'd love to survey them in 6 months from now, because those same people who might report year-end numbers that are just fine, good, great, those same people in 6 months from now, 3 months from now, whatever the time frame is, you're going to be begging for it if they don't have any help around, right? Nobody making those relationships, nobody making those partnerships. And far too often you see companies, they go from, top of the world to zero. Like, how does that happen overnight?
If there's one thing that I've seen time and again, I mean, obviously we've never been through something like this before, but if we rewind to like the financial crisis that happened, the companies which invested then, the companies which invested smartly or invested in their people or took care with those relationships were the ones that you saw prosper at the other end, generally, like from the few examples I can think of. And so I think, the people that will prosper through this next year is going to be tougher. Yeah. Even if there's I'm usually Miss Sunshine, so I don't want to be, I don't want to be glass half full, but, this year's been tough for many different reasons, but next year it's going to be tougher for a whole lot of other reasons. So, I think in terms of debunking myths, like, understand the significance of the people within your business, understand that it doesn't just happen. But, you can get there if you get the input in, the output will come, as you said.
So this is about practical advice. And, this is a time of uncertainty. Nobody knows what next year is going to bring. What kind of practical advice would you give to someone who is struggling right now, who is trying to reinvent themselves, either get a job or, grow within their career, or even their business is going well and they're trying to thrive. They're trying to figure it out. This is a moment of great prosperity. What advice would you provide to people that are out there that are kind of working through this time of uncertainty?
Yeah, no, it is a huge time of uncertainty. And I think that's one of the hardest things for anyone to deal with, because everyone essentially just wants to know where they're at. They want to know what's going on, and no one can answer those questions right now. I mean, the examples you gave at kind of the two ends of the spectrum. And I think, first of all, for people that are struggling right now, I feel for them, because it's just been such an unfathomable year, and I can't try and pretend I know exactly what they're going through right now, but I can imagine the emotions, the mix of emotions they're going through. And I think for them, I would say, don't give up. Don't give up. Be courageous. Be strong. Be confident. Your skills, whatever they are, whichever industry they're in, will be transferable. they will be transferable. Like, sit down, focus on what makes you tick, what makes you happy, use it as an opportunity. I always try and say, spin with the universe and see where it takes you, because sometimes things happen to create positive change, and try and just keep that attitude to see that positive change. I think for the people that are on the other end of the spectrum right now and the business is just racing and things are great, really think about what you've learned through that. As things have been great, have they been great with everything the way it was before? Have they done anything to adapt or change their business? Are they ready for what's next? Like, now is a time to understand how strategically agile your business can be, how quickly you can flex and move, what your plans are to adapt to what is going to be the new business environment. And if you are in any type of business at all, now is the time to be even more obsessed with your customer, to really understand what they want. Because I think naturally this year, many businesses have focused very much internally, what they're going through, the impact on their business, their staff, their team, their strategy, their products, their supply chain. And they've really sort of taken their eyes off of what their customer is going through, what their customer wants, how their customer feels, what their customer needs. And I think that's what people need to focus on right now. That's what they need to obsess about. Because whether it's B2B business and you're selling, software as a service, or whether it's B2C business and you're selling consumer product, it's the same thing. You just need to understand that your product is still relevant, that your business is still relevant. And if things are changing or consumer habits are changing, which they are, how are you adapting your business to meet those new consumer demands? And I think that is incredibly important. And it's probably something good for the person that's struggling right now to think about as well, as, the new environment and new consumer habits, the new business environment. Can you excel in some of those areas that would be useful to businesses? Because if they're not thinking about it now, then in the next 6 to 12 months, I think businesses are going to be looking at how they can bring on people that are going to help them be strategically agile, to help them be more customer and consumer obsessed, and to help them understand all of these things, which are suddenly going to hit like a train, I think.
I think you're spot on. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I started Triple G Ventures for the exact purpose to help companies through this difficult time. But I have my eye on a much better time. Like this too will pass at some point, right? The things will change, things will evolve. And when they do, right, we all, myself included, need to be completely reinvented and on our game. Like, this is our time to thrive, so that's why I kind of phrase the question the way I do. It's like, I think there's an element to survive right now. I really do. And my heart goes out to everyone who's suffering too. I mean, this is just a terrible, terrible time. But in the world of business, it's a cold-hearted reality that business doesn't care, right? At the end of the day, it is. You're up, you're down, you're sideways. Like, that's what it is. So for us, this is a time, an incredible time of reinvention of something that we can do. And, I've heard it in your voice throughout this whole podcast. And it's, I think you're spot on, Sarah. I really do.
I think if you zoom out of all of the misery and the bad stuff of this year, I think what this year reminds you is change is always possible. Even the things that you thought are so ingrained into the everyday, so ingrained into the very essence of society that they will never change. This year has educated all of us that those things can change. They do change sometimes. And, in a sense, knowing that is kind of empowering as well, because it's like, hang on a minute, if the whole world can stop and change, and I just want to change this thing, or I just want to make this happen, it's got to be possible, right? And so I think it is a time where you feel at the same time a little bit empowered, like things are there to disrupt, things are there to change, new things are going to thrive, and it's almost exciting to be like, when we come out of this, what world are we going to come out into? How great can we make it? How much better than before can we be? Like, how much more, all of these things that we've wanted to do, some of these things are fast tracking now, in terms of things that we're passionate about, things which we're excited about, they're fast tracking. So, you kind of get excited for what the world is going to look like afterwards. But, you know, you can't just wait until it happens. You know, even though there's uncertainty now, businesses should be thinking about what could the world look like afterwards. And this is why I talk about consumer habits and how that's going to impact how societies work in a lot of the main markets in which you and I, you know, trade, is thinking about how to adapt to that and how to be ready to you know, reap the rewards once it's there.
You and I have a great common connection, a great common friend, a guy named Mark Frederick, who once said, everything changes. And he always drilled that into my head. I'm sure he did into yours too. And I take that with me every day because you know what? It's true. And there is something empowering about that. Sarah, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us today. It's been very meaningful for me. I'm sure to our listeners too. And I'm so glad that you were able to join me. Your success has just been amazing. It continues to grow, and you truly are success at scale. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Absolute honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you, to hang out and to speak with someone that's, you know, so great at what they do, and just pleased to see you continuing on your successful journey. Triple G in every sense of the word.
Right on.